So you want to do your undergrad from the US or the United States of America. You've probably heard of universities like the Ivy League, Stanford, MIT, etc. and maybe you want to get into these top universities. But as you might know, the US system is extremely different from the Indian system. In the Indian system, you only have one academic exam that decides your future. But in the US system, you do not just have the SAT exam or SAT as many people know it, but you also need to have good grades, extracurriculars, awards, research papers, letters of recommendations, essays, and many more things. And all of this takes time. So you need to start from right now, whether you are in middle school or before, or in high school, or maybe even a parent looking for the right track to US undergrad for their children. In this video, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know to do your undergrad in the US. I'll be explaining the many different ways in which you can get into the US for your undergrad, what the US system actually looks for, and what you should do and when you should do that thing in your journey to actually increase your chances of getting into one of these top universities and do your undergrad. After watching this, the most comprehensive video on YouTube, you will have answers to all your questions like what is the SAT exam, what are APs, how to get good score on the SAT exam, what exactly should you do in your 9th grade, 10th grade, what research papers or extracurriculars you should write, you should do in your 9th grade, in your high school years. Do colleges give financial aid and are your chances affected by that? All of these questions. So first of all, why should you listen to me? Well, here's a bit about me, and if you want to skip sections like these, you can do that using this colorful bar down there. So I'm Vivasud Rastogi, an alumnus of Basant Valley School. I applied to both US universities as an Indian and also gave the JEE exam. I got acceptances from 3 Ivy Leagues, UPenn, Jerome Fisher, M&T program, Brown, Dartmouth, and was waitlisted at 2 others, which are Princeton and Columbia. Other than these, I also got accepted into UC Berkeley, Georgia Tech, U Michigan, and UIUC. In JEE mains, I got a 98 percentile, although that was not my main focus at all. So this fall, I'm going to be joining UPenn or University of Pennsylvania's Jerome Fisher M&T program or Jerome Fisher program in Management and Technology. This is basically a dual degree program in which in 4 years you're going to get 2 degrees, one from Wharton School for Business and another from UPenn Engineering Department, School of Engineering and Applied Sciences. Now, talking about undergrad in US. There are a number of ways in which you can apply. Some require you to be good at only one thing, while others require you to be great at all of these things, plus you need to have some luck. Generally, you can apply either normally as a recruited athlete or as a donor. Now, most of you watching this video will probably be applying normally, so this whole video is going to be about that only. But I'm just going to explain the other two briefly so that you know that things like this do exist. Now, if you want to get into a US university as a recruited athlete, you should be great at this sport and should have some national or even better international achievements. I personally have seen people get into these top universities a lot for squash, some for tennis, and some others for all the other sports that exist. To drastically increase your chances of getting into these top universities, you can apply as a donor, and these donors are basically families who donate large amounts of money, or as people often joke about, they donate a building to these universities. And since this is not relevant because most of the people who apply to these universities are not donors, but I'm just covering this in this video so you should know that things like this do actually exist. Now, if these two things do not apply to you, you have to apply normally, and this video is exactly for you, so stay till the end. So if you are applying to normally, then also you have certain subsections of how you can apply normally. Number 1, you can apply either with or without financial aid. Number 2, you can apply test optional, which is that your SAT exam would not be required in these universities. And number 3, you can apply early or regular. And now I'm going to describe all 3 of them. Now, the first thing that really affects your chances is asking for financial aid. The US cost for 1 year is approximately $90,000, or you can say 75 lakh rupees. And if you think that, if your family thinks that you can pay that much amount to the university, then I would suggest do not apply for financial aid because it might decrease your chances. There are 2 kinds of universities, need blind and need aware for international students. The need aware universities such as Stanford, Caltech, UPenn, etc. These take into consideration the fact that you applied for financial aid. So for example, if you fill out your application, you say that yeah, I need financial aid, then your chances might get reduced. But then there are other universities called need blind universities which are need blind for international students as well, such as Harvard, MIT, Princeton, etc. And what these basically do is that even if you apply for financial aid, they won't consider that, they won't see that. So if you apply for aid or you don't, it won't affect your chances at all. Secondly, you can apply test optional or with your test scores, and by test scores I mean your SAT scores or your ACT scores, or maybe even your AP or advanced placement scores. And I'm going to describe what APs are soon. This whole test optional thing was started because of the COVID scenario, because a lot of students could not actually give these tests, and that is why there was a drastic increase in the number of students that applied to universities this year, and that is why the acceptance rates were really less this year. But now many universities are starting to relax that test optional thing, and now the tests are actually mandatory for some colleges, and thus I would recommend that you do give the SAT or the SAT exam or the ACT exam and the APs. Now, something really important that can actually increase your chances of getting in is applying early. And early means usually like 2.5 to 3 months before the regular deadline, before the normal deadline in your 12th grade. And usually you can only apply early to one college, maximum I think 2 colleges, and there are different kinds of earlies that you can do. It can be early decision, early action, or restrictive early action, and this alone is a topic for a 10-minute video, so I'm going to put a link in the description for that video. Now, coming to the elements of the application, and to cut the long story short, these are the exact things that you need to have in order to become a competitive applicant for these top universities, top 10 universities like the Ivy League, Stanford, MIT, Wharton, etc. So first and foremost, you need academics or your grades, then you need your extracurriculars, you need awards and test scores which include SAT, ACT, APs, etc. Then you need to have your essays and LORs, which are letters of recommendation, and then there's an optional arts portfolio that you might submit. I will describe each of these in detail and give you tips on how to carry out each of the following in this red section, but please don't skip as of now, because what I'm going to tell you soon will save you months of time. Now, before I tell that, if you want more information on the SAT exam, how to prepare for it, what are the extracurriculars you should be doing based on your specific interest, and if you want, let's say, a timeline that gives you what you should be doing starting from your 9th grade to your 12th grade each month, then consider giving your email in the form, the link for which is in the description below. And if you're liking the content till now, please subscribe and like this video. So, it is really important now that I show you one thing that I said will save you months of time, and that is the Common App portal. And this is the portal that you will be actually using in your 12th grade to submit all your applications to all these different universities to whichever you are applying. And this is probably the only document that the admission officer is going to be seeing, and the admissions officer is the person who actually decides whether you will be accepted, rejected, or waitlisted at a particular college. But I said it will save you months, and I wasn't lying, because what essentially happens is that when you start doing these activities, when you start building your profile, things start to go undirectional. You want to do all these different sorts of activities. You want to be in the school band, maybe you want to be in the track and field meet, you want to participate in all the science competition that your teacher tells you of. But then what ends up happening is that when you enter 12th grade, and I've seen this a lot of times for a lot of people, that you actually see that you don't actually have that much space to write in the Common App portal. And what ends up happening is that, let's say you do 100 activities throughout your high school, and when you get to 12th, then you have to shorten it down to around 20 that align with your narrative, because you need to have a narrative, you need to have a spike as they call it, and then you end up writing about only 10 to 15, and that is a huge waste of time. When you could have gone into depth, you could have started off with, let's say, at least 20 activities, and then some of them might have failed, but then the other ones which would have succeeded would have had a lot of depth in them, and that is a much better scenario. And that is exactly why you need to get familiar with this Common App portal, because you should know what you will be seeing few years down the line, so that you don't waste a lot of your time, as I've seen a lot of people do. So this is the Common App portal. In the Common App section, you have these different columns for filling out various things. For example, in the education section, you have grades, honors, etc. And one honor looks like this. There can be maximum of 5 honors, and there is a character limit for each. You also have the testing section, where you can self-report your SAT, TOEFL, ACT, or AP scores. And then you've got the activities section, which is extremely important. You can add up to 10 activities, and each activity looks like this. these columns have pretty less word limit as well. And these are the kinds of activities you can choose from, although you can write anything that's left in the additional information section. Lastly, you have these small sections for each college you apply to, and these have your college specific essays, your letters of recommendations and things like that. Heading back to the components of the application. In this extremely important section, I'm going to describe each of these activities, and I'm going to give you tips on what I did and what you should do in order to become a competitive applicant for all these different top universities. So firstly, academics, and this is perhaps the most important thing in your application. And by academics, I refer to your grades, which are the marks that you have scored in your high school, starting from your 9th grade first term till your 12th grade first term, and then your predicted midterms. You should ideally aim for a 90 plus and even a 95 plus in order to become a competitive applicant. And these colleges also ask for one more thing, which is your rank within the school. Now some schools report that, let's say there are 400 people and you're 10th out of that, so they would report that your rank was 10, but then some schools do not report this rank. And this rank is actually extremely important, because usually, realistically speaking, these top universities will only take the rank 1s or maybe the rank 2s, because they are only taking single digit or maybe like 20 people from India or from other countries if they're viewers from the other countries. And with so less people from throughout the country, they won't bother to check about this person who's coming second in one particular school. They'll only look at the top students. The board you take also matters, and by board I mean CBSE, ICSE, IB, IGCSE. And if you are in an IB board, then you're all set, you're good to go. Just aim for a high score in that. But if you're doing CBSE or maybe even ICSE, then US colleges usually think that it is a bit easy. It's an easier board. That's what I've seen when other people from these boards apply to these colleges. So my recommendation is that you give something called APs, or Advanced Placement Exams. And before I tell why, I want to explain what are APs. So these APs are basically college level courses and college level exams that you need to clear. These are out of 5. And if you clear these, then the colleges will actually know that despite having a CBSE curriculum, you could give this AP exam, and let's say you got a 515, which is a great indication that you will do good when you go to the universities as well. APs happen once a year, and they happen in May usually. If you want to enroll, then there are different test centers you can search up online. There will also be a link in the description for that. So the actual purpose of these APs is to give you something called college credit, and college credit means that when you actually go to college, this is after you've completed your 12th, then there are certain easy courses that you do in your first year, and if you have given these APs, then you have the option to skip those things. So for example, if you're on a computer engineering track, but then there's, let's say, a mandatory chemistry course, and you have already given AP chemistry in your high school and you've got a 515, then you can just skip that, and instead of that maybe do something else. So these are really helpful in the long term. I was in the CBSE board, and I gave 7 APs throughout my high school. Those were AP Chemistry, AP Physics C Mechanics, AP Physics 1, AP Calculus BC, AP Computer Science A, Statistics, and Microeconomics, and I got a 515 on all of them. And I think that was a major part of my application that really increased my chance of getting in. And another way it helped me was that it actually gave me a head start in my CBSE studies also, because a lot of these APs such as AP Physics or AP Chemistry, their curriculum kind of overlaps with the CBSE curriculum of grade 11 or grade 12. So it's better if you give them early, you'll have a head start in whatever grade, in whatever CBSE or ICSE curriculum you're doing. Next is your extracurriculars, which are really important. So you need to have ideally at least 10 of them, and all of them should be about 2 to maximum 3 things. So for example, when I applied, all of my extracurriculars were centered around computational biology or music. And the reason behind that is colleges want people who are good at 1, maximum 2 things. They call it a SPI. These colleges, they don't want a jack of all, they want a master of 1. And now that the competitiveness is increasing by a lot, maybe you have to be a master of 2 or maybe a master of 3. And these ECs or extracurriculars are a way for you to scream at the admissions officers that look, I'm great at astronomy, I love astronomy, and besides that I'm also an exceptional piano player, and here's a list of all the things, all the extracurriculars I've done. and you can see these and you yourself will tell, okay, he's a great astronomy guy and a great and exceptional piano player. Your extracurriculars can be in the form of research papers, community service, entrepreneurial ventures, some awards that you have won, or if you're showing your leadership skill in some project, or maybe some hobby that you have, like playing a musical instrument like the piano. What I would suggest is, in your 9th grade and before that, lay a strong foundation. Do everything that you think you might need in your future, and then from 10th onwards, just enact. Use all the knowledge that you have gained from 9th and before that, and just use all of that to create, let's say, projects, community service, research papers, or all of the things I just mentioned. And so what I did was, in my 10th grade and before, I started a bit late, but in my 10th grade and before, I learned how to make apps, 3D models, I learned machine learning and things like that. And after that, I applied this knowledge into creating some projects, publishing some research papers on computational biology, so integrating these AI machine learning models or these app development programs that I created into biology to create real world applications or stuff that could actually solve real world problems. And then based on these projects, you will get a lot of awards when you apply to these different competitions, and these awards also matter a lot in your college application. I'm going to talk about that soon. I will also be creating a video on what specifically you should be doing based on your interests in 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th grade of your high school. So just be on the lookout for that video, because I'm going to publish it soon. So the next thing, of course, is awards. Ideally, you should have 5 of these 5 awards at any level: school, state, national or international. And these should ideally be academic. Unless you're majoring in something like music, then the award should be related to that. They should be related to whatever spike you're showing. But if you're targeting these tier 1 universities, these top 10 universities like Ivy League, Stanford, MIT, etc., then I would suggest that you at least have 2 international out of those 5 awards that you're giving. These awards can be related to maths Olympiads. These can be your science fairs such as ISEF or Iris National Fair. These can be some community service awards such as the Diana Award. So there are several different awards that are recognized by these universities, and I'm going to be making a video on this soon about what are these big international awards that the universities actually look at. They know what these awards are, and if you actually happen to win one of these, then your chances will increase drastically. The next important part of your application are test scores, and by test scores I mean your SAT, ACT, APs, or maybe even these English proficiency test scores such as TOEFL, IELTS, etc. In the COVID scenario, as I said, many of these universities, they went test optional. So even if you did not submit these test scores, then your application would be considered as complete. But now many of these colleges, they are switching back to the test required policy, which means you do have to submit your SAT score, you do have to submit your ACT score. You can choose between any of these two. And the basic idea behind these two tests is that the SAT, which is out of 1600, and ACT, which is out of 36, the basic idea is that there are several exams that you have given throughout your life which are just amongst your, let's say, your 100 students in your school, or maybe 30 students in your class, or some other Olympiad that you have given. But the SAT is this standardized test, that's why the name, which is given by students all over the world. And if it's a requirement of these colleges, you should expect that all the other people applying with you would have given this test. So it's kind of a benchmark to compare these different applications. Now many people want to know how to actually prepare for these tests such as SAT, ACT, and how I would suggest you to go about the process is take a diagnostic test. Diagnostic test means that you haven't prepared anything. So you just sit up one day, look for an online SAT practice test or an online ACT practice test or both, and without any preparation just give these two. And the score you will get will be your baseline score. And after this, based on whichever test, let's say you got maybe a 1300 on your SAT and a 30 out of 36 on your ACT. So decide which one is better, which test you like more, and go ahead with that one. Don't try to do both of them, because that will doing that you'll waste your time. And once you've decided which one you want to go with, then start preparing for that. And some free resources of course include Khan Academy, and I'm going to make another video about this, telling how exactly you can prepare for these things. So I gave the ACT exam, the pen paper SAT, and the digital SAT, and I thought the digital SAT was the best for me because I was scoring the highest in that, and eventually I ended up getting a 1570 out of 1600 in that. If you want to prepare for these tests and want more information about these that will help you boost your score and get the 1550 plus or 34 plus marks that these colleges usually need, subscribe to this channel, and again type out your email in the form in the description. We are building lots of tools to make your life easier, and if you subscribe, you'll be the first to try these out. Next up, we have your essays, and this is also an extremely important part of your application, although you only need to worry about these once you get into your grade 12 or your senior year of high school. And the purpose that these essays actually serve is to humanize you in the eyes of the admissions officer. So the admissions officer, if you see from his perspective, he's getting thousands of applications, so you can only stand out if you show him what exact thought process you have and why you are intellectually vital, as some people call it, why he should choose you over other applicants who also have stellar grades, stellar SAT test scores, etc. And if you have to think about an analogy, then if the ECs, awards and all these different test scores, grades, if these are the bones of your skeleton, then the essays actually serve as the muscles and the skin of your body. For example, when I was in this process of filling out the Common App and submitting my applications, what I wrote in my extracurriculars about my music was that, okay, I play these instruments, I have done these grades, I have given these exams, I have so and so honors and awards in that. But when I actually described them in my essays, I wrote, okay, this whole thing started when I was like 5, and then when I was roaming the Sunny Check streets, I really liked the saxophone, the people who were playing the saxophone over there, and then that's how I developed the interest, and eventually I started playing that in my school's orchestra. So you build this whole story around each of these things, and you can see how it kind of humanizes you instead of just giving a laundry list of your achievements to the admissions officer. And what these essays also do is they actually give a direction to your whole application. These admissions officers really want a spike in you. They want to see that what one or two things are you exceptional, are you great at. And these essays were a way for me to, actually shout out to these admissions officers that, okay, yeah, I like computational biology, I'm great at computational biology, and I also love music. The next component of your application are your LORs, or letters of recommendation. Although these are extremely important for your application, there's nothing much that you can do about it except for being great in whatever you're doing. So for example, if you're taking your LOR from your, let's say, your science teacher, then just make sure that you behave nicely in your science lessons, you give some intelligent comments, intelligent remarks, do good on your tests, get good grades, and that will ensure that your teacher actually gives you a great LOR. Well, how does this LOR process actually work? How do you actually get recommendations? And the usual process in most of the schools is that you actually ask 2 to 3 teachers of yours who teach you subjects, preferably in 11th and 12th, to give you letters of recommendation. You usually provide them maybe with your achievements. You usually tell them what you have done so that it's easier for them to write your letters of recommendation. And not just teachers, but you can also get these LORs from your music teacher if you are interested in music, if you have been playing music for a long time, or you can get it from your internship mentor or someone you wrote a research paper with. And why I said the LORs, or letters of recommendation, are really important for your college application is because these are usually the only third person perspective that the admissions officers are getting of you. So if you submit your Common App, then you are saying I do this, but then what's the credibility? So these third person LORs are a great way to actually verify whatever you are saying. So if a teacher is backing you up, if they are saying that, okay, this student is actually good, he has been good in class, then that actually makes a lot of difference. Lastly, you have the arts portfolio, and this is a truly optional component of your application. You don't have to submit it. And this is actually for the people who think they are great at some performing art or some visual art. So let's say if you are an exceptional classical piano player, and you might choose to submit 2 to 3 pieces, video recordings of yours, to these colleges. And sometimes what happens is, if these colleges, they actually really love your these videos that you have sent, your performance, they might just select you only on the basis of your piano performances, irrespective of whether you are maxed out on all the other areas of your CV. And this might be because the college really needs some classical piano player. So this was it for this video. If you really like the content and you want such content every 2 to 3 days, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. Also, if you want to get a list of the latest research, internship or extracurricular opportunities, Don't forget to drop your email in the form, the link to which is in the description below. If you have any queries or suggestions, you can type them out in the comment section below. Time to call it a day. Until next time.